very good evening to you. Many thanks for joining us. This is Business Insight coming to you live from the broadcasting house here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. My name is Betty Kiptum and Lensa Odingo is our sign language interpreter. Now, 45.9% of girls are facing some form of violence. We shall be giving you the details of that report in a little bit. But first, let us get the latest on the numbers about the coronavirus pandemic. In the past 24 hours, 3,895 samples were tested. 421 of these were confirmed to be positive. 570 recoveries. That is the highest number of recoveries since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country, the highest number of recoveries in 24 hours. And unfortunately, 8 more people have lost their lives. Now, since March 13th, when the first case was confirmed in the country, Kenya has tested over 200,000 that have already been tested since the we shall be getting those statistics in a little bit, but that is the latest on the past 24 hours. Remember, 3,895 cases were tested, 421 came positive. Those are the numbers on since the coronavirus came in. 230,996 samples have been tested, 11,673 so far positive cases, 3,638 recoveries in all, and unfortunately 217 lives have been lost. That is the latest on the COVID-19 statistics. All that and much more is coming up on Business Insight, but first let's get the highlights.
We continue to beg you, we continue to insist that you stay alive. Don't die. Usikufe tafadhali. And the only way that you don't die is if you follow the protocols that have been very clearly spelled out.
Flattening the curve, war on COVID-19 in the hands of the community as 570 recover, the largest number recorded in a single day. Battle for WTO post, Kenya's Amina Mohamed faces interviewing panel for the post of WTO Director General against 7 other candidates. Child predators, report paints grim picture revealing 45.9% of girls aged 13 to 18 years have been victims of childhood sexual violence. And painful cost, fate of employees at NCBA in limbo as bank shuts 14 of its branches, citing among others the economic impact of COVID-19. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the broadcast. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe says individual responsibility remains the best bet yet for the country if it is to flatten its COVID-19 infections curve. The calls coming as the number of COVID-19 confirmed cases in the country rose to 11,673 after 421 cases were recorded on Thursday. The country also recorded the highest number of recoveries in a single day after 570 more people were discharged from various facilities as well as the home-based care program.
On Thursday, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe was in Nakuru County on a fact-finding mission on the preparedness of the county to handle COVID-19 cases. The county has so far recorded 150 confirmed coronavirus cases.
I would like to appeal to the people of Nakuru to try and keep that number where it is. And I can guarantee you, if everybody is behaving the way I see you now with masks, then it is possible to do so.
We need a testing center here in Nakuru, noting that with 2.1 million people and also being a center for many other counties around us, we will need to have a well-equipped and well-manned testing center.
The visit coming as the number of confirmed cases in the country rose to 11,673 after 421 cases were confirmed. And with men accounting for the highest number of cases in the country, Mutahi would attribute the trend to failure to adhere to the containment measures already in place.
The most serious culprits of not using masks are men. The average female walking around this country has got a mask on. But the men are the ones who are the victims of this offense.
And with the ministry banking on individual responsibility to tackle the virus, the Health Cabinet Secretary cautioned against laxity as the responsibility was no longer with the government.
The myth also that only old people can get it is also not true. I have said it and you have sung it. You can get it. I can get it. We can all. There you go. Sana sana kwanza mashungwa. Mtu ambaye hana mask na wewe unanunua mashungwa kutoka kwa yeye, utaumbukizwa na hiyo shungwa. Utaumbukizwa na shungwa tu.
There is even a placed on notice private laboratories and health facilities that have been issuing discordant COVID-19 test results, saying the Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists Board and National COVID-19 Command Center were auditing operations and competencies of the private facilities certified to conduct the tests.
If you've been hearing that a lab has got all these unclear results, don't go there. Usiende huko. Where are you going for a test that you know, to a lab that you know has been giving information that may not be clear?
So far, 42 counties have recorded cases, with Nairobi leading with 6,491 confirmed cases, Mombasa 1,783 cases, while Kiambu has 640 cases. On a positive note, 570 patients have been discharged, out of which 512 were under the home-based care program. However, another 8 people succumbed to the virus over the last 24 hours.
Usikufe, tafadhali. Usikufe. We insist that you don't die. And the only way that you don't die is if you follow the protocols that have been very clearly spelled out.
Meanwhile, the ministry has launched the Primary Healthcare Strategic Framework, which will, among other things, focus on disease prevention as well as bringing services closer to the people. Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
Thank you, Nancy Okware, for that report. And of course, remember to sanitize and maintain social distance as well as wear your mask. Now, the government has partnered with stakeholders to enhance its capacity to respond to the challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic across the counties as it strives to flatten the infection curve. The efforts are coming amid revelations that most tertiary institutions are yet to comply with COVID-19 guidelines that will inform their reopening.
While inspecting Moranga Technical Institute and Michuki Technical in Maragua and Kangema constituencies respectively, the Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha said all tertiary institutions must conform to the set regulations before their reopening, as the government will not compromise the lives of students. Magoha said Strathmore University is the only tertiary institution that has complied with COVID-19 academic regulations and guidelines, followed by Kibabii University.
Issue of sanitizers and the water points and the distancing within the classrooms, because you don't tell me, you have to mark so that everybody knows this is for somebody, this is where the chair is, and so on. So I'm hoping that within a week or so we shall be able to give more.
In the meantime, religious leaders have been asked to safeguard the well-being of their congregations by adhering to the self-regulating guidelines developed by the Interfaith Council chaired by Archbishop Anthony Moheria in reopening places of worship. This coming as several places of worship get ready to reopen this Sunday following approval by the government.
Fellow preachers, pastors all over the country of Kenya, the government has done us favor to give us an opportunity. These things that they require, the requirement the government wants, is not for the government, it's for the health of our people.
Kwa vile idadi ya washirika wetu ni kubwa kwa kanisa letu, tumeonelea ni vizuri tupeane misa 6.
Elsewhere, Kericho County has benefited from personal protective equipment from the National COVID-19 Fund and Equity Bank Foundation, which will be distributed to hospitals across the county.
So as far as PPE goes, I think we all know that there'll never be enough PPE. We've seen shortages across the world, and we anticipate that what has been brought will be used prudently judiciously, and as the need arises, we hope that there'll be no need for PPE. I think it's better to say that let's not see any cases so that there's then no need again for the PPE.
Busia County also received a consignment of PPEs worth 237 million shillings from the National COVID-19 Fund and Equity Bank Foundation in a bid to protect health workers against COVID-19 as they soldier on in the fight to contain the spread of the virus.
To take responsibility and appeal to all Kenyans to remember there is no government, no law can protect you from yourself. What doctors have told us, wash our hands, don't touch your face unnecessarily, wash your hands, eat well, diet well, exercise, do all the things that you should do to prevent and care for your family.
Meanwhile, Nairobi woman representative Esther Passaris has donated relief food, masks, and sanitary towels to vulnerable groups within Nairobi County. The beneficiaries included persons with disabilities, intersex, the elderly, orphans, caregivers, the youth who were laid off as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, and single mothers.
Next week we'll be giving food to autism and cancer survivors, and we'll also be looking at other areas that we can assist. We didn't have a lot of food, but we're having goodwill from a lot of people. The Chinese embassy has pledged to give us some money for food as well, and with that money we will be able to reach out to other people that we've not been able to reach out.
Beatrice Getonyangetich, Channel 1 News.
Now, sexual violence against girls aged between 13 to 18 years remains high in the country, with 45.9% of girls experiencing childhood violence, according to the 2019 Violence Against Children survey. The report also revealed disturbing statistics indicating that the boy child is increasingly falling under threat, with 56% of those who participated in the survey reporting some form of violence. Labour and Social Protection Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui says, though violence against children has significantly reduced over the last decade, children continue to face one form of violence or another, with associated economic costs proving unsustainable.
The containment measures instituted to curb the spread of COVID-19 and the subsequent closure of schools has led to the spike in abuses against children in the country. Though the 2019 Violence Against Children survey report released on Thursday shows progress made since the first 2010 Violence Against Children survey, including reduction in childhood physical violence for both female and male, it highlights concerning trends which indicate an increase in certain forms of physical and sexual violence among adolescent girls aged 13 to 17 over the past 1 year. The report indicates that some 45.9% of girls in the country experience childhood violence.
While, yes, these results may seem to be an overall improvement from the 2010 survey, I think these are very disturbing findings. These are not numbers, these are children, these are people, these are faces, and these are lives. And right now, with the COVID-19 and its containment measures, we know that this situation is being exacerbated.
It is, however, the disturbingly high number of boys facing one form of abuse or another that is bound to present the government and stakeholders with the biggest challenge yet. The report indicates that 56% of males experience some form of violence.
Physical violence is the most common type of violence experienced in childhood, with 38.8% of female and 51.9% of male being victims. Who are the perpetrators? 28.9% of female and 37.9% of male cited parents, caregivers, and adult relatives to the perpetrators of violence.
Chelugui says the National Prevention and Response Plan 2019-2023 will guide programming and resource mobilization for child protection programs in Kenya, with a view of reducing child violence in the country by 40%.
Commit to actively implement the Violence Against Children National Prevention and Response Plan 2019-2023 and provide the required leadership and guidance.
He noted that beyond the pain and suffering every child survivor of violence Economic costs of violence against children is too high for all sectors and the entire society to bear through direct service provision costs, undermined learning, as well as loss of productivity. Caroline Kamar reporting for Channel 1 News.
To some politics now, the government has been challenged to prioritize reviving the economy in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi is warning national security could be compromised as thousands continue to lose their jobs and sources of livelihoods owing to the pandemic.
As the number of COVID-19 cases countrywide continue to rise with devastating effects on the health, social and economic well-being of Kenyans, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi wants the government to focus on reviving the economy. Mudavadi is urging the government to formulate achievable goals and strategies to drive the economy.
Tukiweka askari milioni moja, lakini watu milioni 50 hawana kazi. Hawa askari milioni moja hawataweza security. Kile kitaweza security katika Kenya yetu ni kuhakikisha kwamba watu wana ajira, mtu analisha jamii yake, mtu ana kitu kwa mfuko, anaenda nyumbani, wanakula na familia yake.
Mudavadi lauded economic recovery strategies during retired President Kibaki's tenure, calling on government to institute measures to reduce on job losses, curtail inflation and ensure Kenyans can afford at least a meal a day.
But I want to also assure you that Mimi, I have no business of revenge in my heart. Mumenikosea nini? Hakuna. So, in my leadership, there should be no fear.
Mudavadi, who has openly declared his intention to vie for presidency in 2022, says national security will only improve if Kenyans are guaranteed of a sustainable livelihood. He vouched for himself as a leader who is focused on changing the lives of Kenyans.
Kama Ruto anatafuta, yeye anatafuta. Mimi natafuta. That is the message.
Well, we would like to take a quick short break, but remember you can interact with us on Twitter is at KBC Channel 1. Myself, I'm at Betty Kiptum. See you at the other side of this break.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more, like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Coca-Cola, taste the simple joys.
Jumapili hii kwenye runinga ya KBC, ungana naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu kuanzia saa 1 hadi saa 2 asubuhi.
Ningetaka nikwambie, our Jehovah God, because the Bible says he is the same yesterday, today and forevermore. He is able to take you to a place of abundance. He is able to take you to Rehoboth in the name of Jesus Christ.
Kipindi ni neno la neema, ukiletewa naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu. Usikose.
My trust is in you.
Manchester United are oozing with confidence ahead of their Emirates FA Cup semi-final showdown against Chelsea, whose desire for trophies cannot be underestimated.
Oh, and he picks out Barkley, who scores. It's a super goal. It's a good setup. Martial was in the... Maguire! And he has won it!
It is another must-watch match live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1 on Sunday, the 19th of July from 8 p.m.
Welcome back. This is Business Insight. Now, Busia Governor Sospita Ojamong has denied abuse of office charges in an 8 million shillings fraud case against him and 8 others. Ojamong, who was in the dock for the second day in a row, instead shifted the blame to the County Executive Committee member in charge of water and sanitization, who he says was responsible for approving payments. Meanwhile, the DPP has dropped the murder case against Omar Lali, the boyfriend to the late Keroche heiress Tekra Muigai. The DPP, in dropping the case, proposed an open inquest into the matter.
Thursday morning.
Your Honor, in a month, Madam R. could dispense.
Busia Governor Sospita Ojamong will appear before Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogote to give his unsworn statement on charges of abuse of office. It is the fourth charge facing the governor, who is also accused, among others, a conspiracy to commit an offence of economic crime and defrauding the county government.
Your Honor, I wish to deny categorically that I never conferred 8 million shillings improperly to Madam R. Enterprises. The money in question, the 8 million, was authorized by the County Executive Committee.
Ojamong denied approving the payment to Madam R. Enterprises before passing the buck to the County Executive Committee member in charge of water and sanitation, who he argued approved the payment.
CC for Water, Health and Environment addressed to me requesting me to authorize the project to proceed since they had gotten funds from the department.
Ojamong further argued that the two projects, which included a solid waste management plan and the feasibility study, saved the county 17 million shillings.
Had the county government alone undertaken solid waste management in the county, we would have spent over 15 million shillings in the year.
The case continues on Friday, with witnesses expected to continue giving their testimonies. Meanwhile, 3 former Kenya Pipeline Company employees were arraigned in court and pleaded not guilty to abuse of office and fraud charges. The trio included the former Kenya Pipeline Company Managing Director Charles Kiprotich Tenui, Elias Maina Karome, and Josephat Sirma. They were each released on a cash bail of 700,000 shillings or a bond of 3 million shillings.
The matter is allocated to Honorable Victor Wakumile SPM for further proceedings and determination. Retrial on 3rd of August 2020.
Omar Lale is said to be a freeman after the DPP applied to withdraw murder charges against him. In applying to withdraw the charges and seek for an open inquest, the DPP pointed out he had reviewed toxicological evidence, detailed post-mortem reports, phone records, other documentary exhibits, and witness statements.
Meaning that the accused person present today may not subsequently be charged with the same offense. It is possible. So it is not an evasion. We are not evading.
The state wishes to pursue other means of investigation. It does not mean that the case against the accused has been thrown away completely.
Reporting for Scales of Justice Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Robi.
And residents of Mwisho Waraha in Kangema constituency are demanding justice for a 16-year-old girl who was allegedly defiled by an administration police officer while 2 assistant chiefs stood guard. Irate residents took to the streets to protest the incident, which reportedly took place in the expansive Aberdare forest. More details on this rather sad story with Yusuf Farah in the county news briefs.
Police officer on the spot for allegedly collaborating to defile a minor. The 16-year-old teen says she was ordered to go into the Aberdare forest where the heinous act was committed.
It is alleged that a girl was defiled and investigations are ongoing. So the case is with the police right now.
Irate villagers who got wind of the matter stormed the forest where they roughed up one of the assistant chiefs while the other one escaped. The crowd attempted to torch an AP vehicle which had come to the rescue of the officer.
Mzee mkubwa akona kwake na akona familia yake na anakuja kuharibu mtoto wa miaka 15. Kabla angekuja kwa mimi mzee kukosa kuharibu msichana wa shule.
They're now demanding justice amid claims of an increase in defilement cases in the forest. Elsewhere, Mandera County government has kicked off hepatitis B vaccinations in the region to reduce the burden of the disease. Health Officer Rahma Ibrahim, while launching the one-month exercise on Thursday, said 1,134 persons tested positive for the disease out of the 10,200 blood samples collected.
The buck will not stop with our healthcare workers. We are planning also to test all our community members and ensure they get the vaccine. Of course, at some fee.
And young people have been challenged to take advantage of opportunities presented by the government's National Hygiene Program, whose second phase was launched earlier this week. The 10 billion shilling countrywide program seeks to cushion beneficiaries from adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mambo ya COVID inaandamana na usafi na hygiene. President akaonelea pia tuweze kukuaisha mji wetu safi, makazi yetu yawe masafi. At the same time,
if you join any technical training institute, the national government pays for you 30,000 shillings. On top of that, Higher Education Loans Board will give you 40,000 shillings.
In the meantime, Teso North Officer Commanding Police Division Wilson Muraya has condemned the Truck Drivers Act for staging an unlawful strike that resulted in destruction of property and ground businesses at the border to a halt.
Yes, they had genuine reasons, but those reasons and grievances could be addressed in a better way, not necessarily by staging a strike. I call upon all the drivers and every other Kenyan, law-abiding Kenyan, to follow the rules.
The truck drivers were protesting the COVID-19 testing measures that are causing them long delays. Finally, a family in Naivasha is spending sleepless nights following the disappearance of their 17-year-old from Tucson. He was last seen at a game reserve in the town 3 months ago. The residents of Kahuo village in Maela location are accusing guards at the sanctuary of foul play, saying 5 people have disappeared within the reserve in an unclear circumstances. The family's hope of seeing their son alive is fast dwindling after they recovered his clothes inside the sanctuary, but his whereabouts remain unknown.
Hiyo maguo sio kulalirua. Nguo imetolewa nzuri na hakuna mahali ilikuwa imelaluriwa na wanyama. Kwa hivyo sio wanyama. Huyu mtu ndio tunahitaji serikali iweke nini sana ndio huyu mtu aweze kusukuma ndio atupatie mtoto wetu.
Yusuf Farah, Channel 1 News.
Now, further afield, South Africa's coronavirus cases surpassed the 300,000 mark, the highest in the continent and amongst the top 10 in the global arena. More than 13.7 million people around the world have been diagnosed with COVID-19, while more than 8.1 million have recovered, with over 588,000 having succumbed to the virus. This is according to data from Johns Hopkins University.
South Africa is now the 8th country in the world with the most recorded cases of COVID-19 infections. The country has seen a total of 160,693 recoveries and 4,453 deaths. Meanwhile, India's coronavirus cases surged by another 32,695, taking the nation closer to 1 million and forcing a new lockdown in the popular western beach state of Goa 2 weeks after it was reopened to tourists. And France will make the wearing of face masks compulsory in indoor public spaces from next week, the government has said, as officials noted signs of an increase in the coronavirus outbreak. Already, obligatory gear on collective transport masks will also become mandatory in shops and other indoor places frequented by the public. Elsewhere, Swiss drug maker Novartis will provide 15 generic drugs for treating the symptoms of coronavirus to developing countries on a not-for-profit basis. The drugs range from antibiotics to steroids and pills for diarrhea and will be provided to 79 low and lower middle-income countries. Russia plans to produce 30 million doses of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine domestically this year, with the potential to manufacture a further 170 million abroad, the head of the country's sovereign wealth fund said. And Hong Kong's health officials are grappling with new cases of COVID-19 after a surge in local transmissions. The city had been praised for its quick and effective response to the pandemic during its first wave of cases. In Latin America, the number of coronavirus-related deaths has now exceeded 150,000, with the World Health Organization warning that the outbreak is expected to peak next month in the region. The worst-hit country by far is Brazil, where nearly 2 million people have been infected and more than 75,000 have died, the world's second-highest death toll behind only to the US. For Channel 1 News, I am Emily K. Badi.
Jiamini na ujikubali kuwa wewe kibinafsi. Ikiwezekana, cheza kama wewe, kwa sababu wengine wote wameshachukuliwa. Aliyesalia ni wewe mwenyewe, na kando yako hakuna mwingine. Inakufaa kucheza ngoma kiwewe, kana kwamba
Kupata ujiamini, bonyeza star 811 star 817 hash. Bonyeza star 811 star 817 hash.
On the next episode of
Nasema, mwangalia huyu. Sasa ukuja kuuza nini hapa? Sio sura yako mbaya.
Aisha, usisema kusha kutoka wewe. Majina maji ya kutosha.
Sijakuja sababu ya maji. Mambo yambadilika. Ukiangalia tekela. Tekela leo lazima nimalize.
Wewe nipe pesa zangu wewe.
Tujali kazi zenu
My husband alipass last year May 19th. Hiyo kitu pia ilitu affect sana. But after all tukasema maybe ni mpango wa God. Tuwezi pingana na Mungu.
Alikuanga mzima, alikuanga anajifanyia kazi, alikuanga anajitegemea na watoto wake. Sijui ugonjwa ilitokanga wapi. Namuomba sasa ni mimi namsaidia.
Differently abled, differently.
Thank you for staying with Business Insight on KBC Channel 1. I'm Betty Kiptum. Let's now do the business news. NCBA Bank has shut 14 branches in what the lender says was a direct result of branch overlaps and the impact of COVID-19. The affected branches are in Mombasa, Nairobi, Eldoret and Kisumu. A statement from the bank did not indicate how many workers will be affected by the branch closure.
In May last year, the Competition Authority authorized the merger between CBA and NIC Bank on condition that none of the 1,872 employees of the bank was to lose their jobs for a period of 12 months. The third largest bank by assets in Kenya has said the merger had left the new outfit with branch overlaps. The bank has announced the closure of 14 branches to improve efficiency from the merged entities. NCBA says 8 of the affected branches belong to former NIC Bank, while 6 belong to CBA. The statement did not say how many employees will be affected by the exercise. The affected branches are spread out in Nairobi, Nanyuki, Machakos, Mombasa, Diani, Eldoret and Meru. The lender advised customers to access services at nearby branches. The bank has further put a brake on its expansion plans, where it intended to open 15 branches in the next 2 years. O'Brien came in for Business Insight.
Now, increased cost of transport is negatively impacting the productivity of government workforce, according to the Union of Kenya Civil Servants. The Union Secretary General Tom Odege says most government employees cannot afford basic commodities due to high transport cost, which has stretched daily expenses besides jeopardizing critical public services.
As the coronavirus pandemic continues to wreak havoc in the job market, that has so far seen an estimated 800,000 jobs lost in the private sector, stakeholders are now issuing alert on the impact of COVID-19 in the civil service when it comes to work output. According to the Union of Civil Servants, productivity is only at a quarter of normal operations, with critical government offices mostly offering selected essential services left understaffed as strict health measures are enforced. According to the Union Secretary General Tom Odege, this is partly occasioned by high cost of living that has reduced productivity of the workers.
Those who are working at the borders are now working extra time because they are now forced to do even the work of security, because some of them are forced to now restrict movements which were not there before. So the public service currently, those who are in the service are overworked. But those who are working in areas where the services are scaled down, the public is suffering because they are not getting the services.
Escalating transport charges, the union says, are now beyond many civil servants.
The transport cost has risen twice or thrice, but they are maintained on the same wage. We are not trying to tell the government to give more money, but you'll find that at the end of the day, these people are not able to deliver services throughout the month as they used to do, because it reaches a point where they can no longer be able to go to work because of the cost of transport.
The union asks that all civil servants should be treated as frontline workers due to their frequent interaction with clients and be provided the PPE kits and adequate insurance cover.
Every public servant who is in contact with the public should be given the same, so that they should not fear going to work for the public, so that we can be in a position or a direction trying to normalize the service delivery to the people of Kenya, because we are not going to live in fear forever.
The union is now pushing for an increase of civil servants' allowance to mitigate against the adverse economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Benson Rioba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Now, the Sports Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohamed, pitched her case before members of a special General Council meeting Thursday afternoon as she sought to become the next head of the World Trade Organization. Amina was before the panel at the WTO headquarters in Geneva to explain her agenda for the international body in charge of regulating international trade between nations, where she is battling 7 other candidates to replace Director General Roberto Azevedo, who resigned from the position.
Sports Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohamed Thursday presented her agenda for the global trade body to the 164 member states representatives at the WTO headquarters in Geneva. 8 candidates are on the race to head the World Trade Organization following the abrupt resignation of the former WTO Director General Roberto Azevedo, who opted to leave the global position this August instead of August 2021. The candidates include 3 from Africa, 2 from Europe, 2 from Asia, and 1 from Mexico. Kenya's candidate Ambassador Amina Mohamed, former Nigerian Foreign and Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Egyptian former diplomat Hamid Mamdouh are the African candidates battling to head the global body in charge of regulating international trade between nations. Between 2000 and 2006, Amina served as the ambassador and permanent representative to Kenya Diplomatic Mission in Geneva and chaired the African group in the WTO's Human Rights Commission. In 2005, she became the first woman to chair the WTO's General Council.
I believe we can break the cycle of despair and enter into a new phase of hope and realism. I know that I have what it takes to be Director General of the WTO, to help the WTO make progress on crucial issues. And I know this because during my time here in Geneva as ambassador and later as minister, I have severally been appointed by the membership to chair WTO bodies.
The campaign to replace Azevedo runs until September after which the eliminations round will last up to 2 months. The winner will take the mantle at a time when the WTO is under siege, not just from the long drawn-out tariff war between the US and China, but also in the wake of the COVID-19 global pandemic, which has consequently paralyzed the global economy, prompting a need for a swift economic recovery plan.
There are 3 key areas where the WTO membership needs to focus: reform, recovery, and renewal. We need to recapture the visionary inspiration of the original architects of the system. Governments must breathe new life into the WTO so it can play a key role in helping recovery from the pandemic and in rebuilding economic resilience.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is among prominent leaders who have pitched for Ambassador Amina Mohamed, expressing optimism in her leadership skills.
We are a country that will strongly back Ambassador Mohamed, whom we are extremely proud of. And we do believe that she does, within her, have the capacity to take world trade to a whole new level and to bring consensus at a time that it is greatly needed.
The WTO is the largest international economic organization in the world and provides a framework for negotiating trade agreements and a dispute resolution process among member countries. For Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Acheng Oma.
To matters agriculture now, favorable weather across tea growing regions coupled with improved crop husbandry practices saw green leaf production grow by 28.5% for the year ended June 30th, 2020 to stand at 1.448 billion kilograms compared to 1.127 billion kilograms over a similar period last year. This is despite subdued global prices as a result of COVID-19 disruptions along the value chain, according to Kenya Tea Development Agency.
Steady weather patterns characterized by prolonged rains experienced in the country for the year ended June 30th, 2020 resulted in higher yields for green tea leaves. As such, it is estimated that production in KTDA-managed factories rose from 9 million to 13 million kilos on a weekly basis during this period. However, the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic across the globe has affected sales that saw global tea prices plummet on the backdrop of production oversupply in the market. As a result, the unit price of KTDA old teas for the financial year 2019-2020 fell by 6.8% to an average 12-year low of $2.42 per kilo compared to $2.59 per kilo in 2019. This is the lowest KTDA average price since 2008, when the average price per kilo of tea at the auction was $2.17. In the last 3 auctions for the year ended June 2020, the average price for a kilo of tea at the auction dropped below $2, a scenario last seen in 2007. Kenya is not an exception, as falling tea prices is being experienced across the other markets such as India and Sri Lanka that have also posted similar price declines as a result of oversupply and the disruption in the industry. Members of the 54 tea factory companies, which own the 69 factories that are managed by KTDA, will soon know how much they earned for the period under review as the agency closes its financial books. Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
The National Transport Safety Authority has signed a data-sharing memorandum of understanding with the Insurance Regulatory Authority in a deal aimed at curbing fraud and other vices in the motor vehicle class of insurance business. As Benson Riaba narrates, the partnership seeks to help turn around the motor vehicle insurance business, which has been loss-making for most underwriters.
In its annual State of Insurance report in 2018, the Association of Kenya Insurance emphasized on the use of technology such as blockchain to help block fraudulent claims. It is with this insight that the Insurance Regulatory Authority and the National Transport and Safety Authority have partnered to collaboratively realize the partners' statutory mandates, including regulations, supervision, compliance, and enforcement. The MOU shall facilitate sharing of relevant data between NTSA, ARA, and the insurance industry, through structured exchange of information. The exchange of information will include verification module to enable ARA verify the policy information obtained by NTSA from insurance companies. The data exchange shall be enabled by NTSA Transport Integrated Management System, which incorporates all functions relating to motor vehicle registration, licensing and inspection, and is integrated with the electronic sticker system, which will play a critical role in supporting enforcement activities. This is expected to reduce motor vehicle insurance fraudulent claims and enable easy tracking of unregistered motor vehicles on the road. Speaking during the signing of the MOU, ARA CEO Betty Kiptum said, quote, "By signing this working protocol between ARA and NTSA, we are sending yet another very strong signal to the cartels behind fraud in motor vehicle insurance that their days are numbered," end of quote. On its part, NTSA Director General George Ngao said that the partnership will go a long way in enhancing service delivery to the citizens and ultimately enhancing the road safety in Kenya. Benson Rioba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
The modern farmer is leveraging on technology in the wake of climate change, growing demand for organic products as well as changing lifestyles. According to Vitalis Wafula, a commercial director at Yara East Africa, despite increased use of fertilizer in recent years, yields are poor due to low levels of know-how on best agricultural practices among farmers, and this could be corrected through, among others, technology. Take a look.
Kenya prides itself as an agriculture-driven economy. Amid the COVID-19 disruptions as well as climate change, what is the status of Kenya's food security? I'm Regina Manyara, and taking us through this conversation is none other than Vitalis Wafula, who is a commercial director of Yara East Africa. Thank you for your time, Vitalis. Now, we've talked about and we've seen what COVID-19 has done across border, across all sectors. Has this affected, Kenya's status of food security from where you sit?
Thanks a lot, Regina. Yes, indeed, this pandemic, as you know, is affected literally all sectors, and agriculture is not an exception. However, I must say that to some extent, we have worked to try and ensure that the effects are not so hard-hitting, because we were lucky to have imported products, fertilizer specifically, in good time for the planting season. So, and working with the government, and fertilizer was classified as an essential product. So we have continued to work with farmers while respecting, of course, the regulations on social distancing and all the other guidelines given.
So what is the current status of Kenya's food security?
We still have a long way to go for us to be able to produce sufficient food for both our own consumption as well as for sales. So yes, we're still in a position where we don't have enough food for this country, but that does not mean that we can't, because all we need to do is step up the productivity per unit area.
What is Yara doing to support efforts towards attaining food security?
We have, as a company, been operating and producing crop nutrition products, fertilizer, for more than 120 years around the world. In Kenya, we've been operating for more than 25 years. One of the key things that we are looking at and we have been doing is we have a campaign to educate our farmers, to spread the knowledge about using the right types of fertilizer, applying the right quantities and applying at the right time. These three issues really will impact on how well our farmers can produce food in this country. So Yara invests in products in terms of the portfolio, crop-specific products, because we have proven it. We invest in a lot of trials and demonstrations to show our farmers really how to better produce using the right type of products, because traditionally the products that have been used in this country are, to a large extent, the reason why we also continue to see a situation where we are reducing productivity.
What impact do you think, adoption of technology within the agricultural space is going to have in boosting output?
We just need to invest in the right type of technology. Look at irrigation, for example. And these kind of technologies will not only spur productivity, it will also be attractive to even the youth who traditionally have shied away from agriculture. And we see now more and more youth participating. But for example, in Yara, we have an app, a weather predicting app. It's called Farm Weather, which these are some of the tools that can help the farmers to know when should they prepare their land, when should they expect the rain. And this particular app, for example, is a hyper-local weather prediction tool.
What have you done to ensure that fertilizer is accessible and affordable to that smallholder farmer?
And now we have a program also that we are linking all those small agro dealers to the big distributors in the towns to ensure that the product flows from our warehouse all the way to the last mile where the farmer actually has access to it. And access is just one, of course. Then, of course, we are doing this while ensuring that the product reaches the farmer at an affordable rate. Because then, of course, there's no use if the product reaches to them and they cannot afford it. But at the same time, it's really important to emphasize that the most expensive product is that which doesn't work. So it is important that we invest in in products that actually deliver value to the farmers. Because if a farmer is able to produce with 2 bags of Yaramila Power and Amidas, if they're able to produce 30 bags of maize in an acre, for sure they will have more money to invest in something else.
What are the emerging trends, in terms of interventions as well as just tools available right now in the agricultural space?
You see, there's a lot of digital application in the agricultural space. Extension, for example, traditionally extension was delivered on a one-on-one basis. But what this has changed. People now are very digital savvy. I mean, we are delivering all this farmer knowledge via digital platforms. Social media is really a very powerful tool right now for farmers as a source of information, for example. And farmers don't have to, they don't need to physically present themselves, for example, to collect even the inputs. Things are being delivered, while sitting in an office somewhere or on the farm somewhere. They can order, things are delivered on digital platforms.
Acreage under agriculture is shrinking. From where you sit, how does agriculture of the future, or how do you think agriculture of the future is going to look like?
I have friends who have completely quit paid employment and they are really focused on vegetable farming especially, and it's really a good thing. We have moved to a space where we don't just apply fertilizer on a given field, but we apply based on the requirement of that particular field. We can map farms digitally and apply what we call variable rate application of fertilizer. So you apply based on a digital map, based on the requirement of that particular part of the field. If that part does not require nitrogen, you don't need to apply it, and you can put this on a tractor and load that particular applicator, and it will go out and apply fertilizer on that field variably, without having to apply blankets on the field. So, and this is optimizing our cost, is optimizing on the productivity, and this is the way of the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Very well said. Our guest, the Vitalis Wafula, who is the commercial director of Yara East Africa, is saying that agriculture of the future is going to be driven by technology. Having that information to know exactly what fertilizer to apply when is going to come in very handy in as far as, especially Kenya focuses on food security. I'm Regina Manyara, you're watching KBC Channel 1 Business.
Thank you, Regina Manyara, for that detailed interview there. Now, with the resumption of domestic flights, hoteliers at the coast are appealing to the county government to waive 2020 license operating fees to support tourism recovery efforts. Kenya Coast Tourism Association Chair Victor Shitaka further wants the government to ease some safety protocols for international tourists expected to trickle in from next month. As Juni Karisa reports, hoteliers estimate that at least 10 billion shillings have already been lost in just 3 months when the cessation of movement was enforced.
Kenya's tourism hotspots at the coast have been forced to bear the brunt of the coronavirus pandemic, which has brought the entire tourism and travel industry to a halt. With billions lost, hoteliers can only project a slow recovery as most opted to maximize the silent period for renovations. Public beaches still remain closed to local tourists, a worrying situation particularly for most operators along the coastline.
Uchumi wetu umekufa kabisa. Kiangalia sasa hii na kama mwezi wa 4 hata nyumba nimefungiwa. Watoto siko nao wamepotea, wameenda nyumbani. Sasa hii yani ni problem kwa fupi, ni shida. Tuwaomba serikali yani ikae chini hapa mahala tufungulie tupate uhitaji yani wa kazi.
Sisi tunategemea hapa venye ndege imefungwa waje wafungue utalii uko sawa, kwa sababu kama hii bichi kweli imefunguliwa ndio watu wengi uona, hata kwa magazeti ndio anajua Mombasa iko sawa.
With the resumption of domestic air travel as well as SGR train operations, stakeholders in the hospitality industry say they have adhered to the outlined health safety protocols, noting a revision of promotional rates to attract business activities.
If we can have the airlines, if we can have SGR, and even the buses that are going to come here to offer rates that will tell Kenyans, yes, we are open, we are free to move, we've got special offers, let us use these offers for the first 3 months, let us use them and come in.
However, the silver lining has been met with a backlash. Hotel owners claim they are unable to pay their yearly license operating fee.
So if they could agree, one, of course, what I would ask is to waive off this year and we start next year. But I understand that they need monies. Maybe we only pay 50% of the license fare, or give us, we come up with a proposal that we pay in bits so that all of us are cushioned.
The players also lament that some of the safety measures in place will discourage revelers from accessing their facilities.
Once they come in, that they are supposed to go for a 14-day quarantine period. I think this is not on. It will mean that a tourist coming to Kenya will have to have more than 14 days of stay so that he can go for quarantine 2 weeks and then stay on. They will not come to Kenya, and if that is a rule, then we just better close up and say no tourism.
Kenya Coast Tourism Association Chair Victor Shitaka is appealing for facilitation from the government to cushion the industry further before international tourism kicks in. Juni Karisa from Mombasa County.
Hair extensions manufacturer Darling Kenya has started free distribution of hygiene kits and sanitizers, as well as education on safety and hygiene for salons in efforts to get back clients into salons. Salons in Kenya have so far lost 30% of the business after clients kept away in fear of contracting COVID-19. Here are the details of these and others in our corporate briefs.
Kenya has over 50,000 salons whose operations have faced a slowdown or closure due to fears of transmission of the virus, since salon professionals work in close proximity with their clients. Hair extensions manufacturer Darling Kenya estimates that the industry lost 30% of the business after clients opted to stay away from salons in fear of contracting COVID-19.
We are doing this so that this 25 billion shillings industry, which is the hair industry in Kenya, can return back to normal, return back to business, at the same time maintain the safety protocols outlined by the government.
Darling Kenya will be donating 100,000 reusable masks, 20,000 litres of disinfectants, 10,000 litres of liquid hand wash, and 3,000 face shields to stylists, all contained in a salon hygiene kit.
Biashara ilikuwa chini juu customers walikuwa wanaogopa kukuja huku juu hii mambo ya COVID.
So kutoka March hatujakuwa tukifungua juu walikuwa wanaongopa. Hii market yetu inaingianga watu wengi. So customers wamekuwa wanaongopa sana, biashara imekuwa chini.
Meanwhile, Novozymes has donated food to support 30 needy students at Starehe Boys Center who are still sheltering in the school after closure of learning institutions due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
We realize Starehe still has some children who are still stuck in school. This is despite the fact that the schools were closed in Kenya back in March. So these kids do not have means of going back home, or they don't have homes to go back to. And someone needs to keep them in school in terms of food and other needs.
Starehe Boys Center's budget deficit is growing, and this has significantly affected its ability to cater for the needs of the students from underprivileged backgrounds.
They've been with us for the last 4 months, and they require from us upkeep, care, health care, feeding, and other necessities that we have to give them so that they can be happy and comfortable.
We do remain behind when the others go to school. It's either by choice or if you don't have the means. But it's a privilege that Starehe offers for us.
The food will be used to support a 3-month feeding program for the students who are either orphans or come from very destitute families. Finally, the latest Future of Business survey by Facebook and the World Bank indicates that more than a quarter of small businesses in over 50 countries closed down between January and May this year due to COVID-19. A third of the businesses currently operating reported that they had reduced their workforces, a worrying sign of what could be a lengthy job crisis. The survey was conducted between January and May this year and sampled 30,000 small business leaders in over 50 countries, including Kenya.
People who choose to read their Bible daily, they become wiser and they become stronger than the people who don't read their Bibles. So when you choose hard, difficult things, you become a natural leader. He brings us to church to introduce to us another higher level of relationship that is called a faith relationship. You are also a solution to somebody else's problem. You cannot be the only problem all the time.
Join Pastor Jimmy Masharia on The Master's Touch this Sunday from 8 a.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Manchester United are oozing with confidence ahead of their Emirates FA Cup semi-final showdown against Chelsea, whose desire for trophies cannot be underestimated.
Oh, and he picks out Barkley, who scores. It's a super goal. It's a good setup. Martial was in the... Maguire! And he has won it!
It is another must-watch match live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1 on Sunday, the 19th of July from 8 p.m.
Welcome back. Among the new taxes that came into force this month was the digital services tax, charged at the rate of 1.5% on gross sales by online businesses. Minimum tax also came into the picture at 1% of sales made. What does this mean for small and medium-sized enterprises, and who exactly does these taxes target? To answer these questions, I earlier on talked to Charles Cheruiyot, who is in charge of policy and tax advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority. This is how that conversation went. The Finance Act of 2020 came into law, and this means that there are some new taxes that have been introduced. Some affect individuals, others affect companies. Today we want to speak to Charles Cheruiyot. He is the manager in charge of policy and tax advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority, to just discuss what these taxes are, especially for the companies. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much for having us. Now, could you just take us through what minimum tax for the companies is, the newly introduced minimum tax?
Minimum tax is a form of taxation that is actually geared towards bringing each and every other person who has business in Kenya to pay their taxes. Initially, we have had a number of under the old regime, where taxes are actually paid, because when it comes to issues of income tax, it's actually tax on income, and therefore a number of companies that have actually been making losses throughout the years, perpetual loss makers, have not actually been paying this major their taxes in terms of the income, and therefore because taxes is actually charged on income, and for that matter they have not actually been paying their taxes, meaning that at the end of the day these companies are not actually contributing into the kitty in developing our country, and therefore the government has seen it wise that we introduce another form of taxation called minimum tax. Minimum tax is a tax that is based on turnover or the sales that has been made by a company or by a person over a period of 3 months. And therefore the basis is actually sales, and the sales that we are actually talking about is gross sales. So for instance, now if a person has made sales between the period January up to March of 100 or let's say 1 million Kenya shillings, so the minimum tax that will be payable by that person would be 1 million Kenya shillings. And the percentage of the minimum tax is 1%, meaning that at the end of the day, this person will be required to pay around 10,000 Kenya shillings for purpose of that. Okay, in relations to that turnover that he has earned as minimum tax.
Okay, right. And who is this minimum tax targeting?
The minimum tax is targeting every person, and when I talk about a person, I mean these are corporate bodies who are in business, as well as individuals also who are in business, and therefore it is actually a tax for everyone who is actually in business.
Yes. And how different is it from, say, corporate tax?
No, minimum tax is not different from corporate tax, in the sense that minimum tax that is payable is actually a form of advanced tax. It's a form of advanced tax, because at the end of the day, after a person has concluded or made up his accounts and he has determined the amount of taxes that he's supposed to be paying, now what happens is that the tax that he's supposed to be paying after the year end, that means a period of 12 months when he makes up his account. Now what happens is that he is supposed to take into considerations the amount that is actually paying on the actual tax arising from his income that he has earned, less the withholding or the minimum tax that he has paid over the period. And minimum taxes are payable on a quarterly basis. That means in the 4th month, after the 4th month, in the 4th month, the 6th month, the 9th month, and the 12th month. That means you have got to pay them in 4 installments.
So this tax now, the minimum tax, it's separate from turnover tax and the corporate tax, is that right?
Yes.
So is this not double taxation?
It is not double taxation. The relationship between corporate tax and minimum tax will converge at the point where, after determining the amount of tax that you are supposed to pay based on the profits that you have earned, say for instance in the year 2020 a company earned a profit from January up to December, a profit of I'm still using 1 million Kenya shillings. Okay? Now, if it is taxable profit of 1 million Kenya shillings, the tax payable is at the rate of 25%. Meaning that if it is 1 million Kenya shillings, the tax that is supposed to be payable, which in this case we refer to as corporate tax, is actually 250,000 Kenya shillings. That means it is 25% of 1 million Kenya shillings. And therefore it is 250,000 Kenya shillings. Now, assuming that this person, through his turnover over the 12-month period, he has paid minimum tax of 150,000. Meaning that at the end of the day, we have got to take cognizance of the amount of tax that this person is liable to pay in that year. That is 250,000 Kenya shillings. But is he required to pay the entire amount again at the end of the year? The answer is no. He will not be required to pay 250,000, because what happened is that he is already paid 150,000 Kenya shillings through the minimum tax process. Right. And therefore, then what he will only be required to do is actually to pay the balance. That is the difference between the tax that is supposed to be payable, 250,000 Kenya shillings, less the minimum tax that he has already paid by way of installments. Okay. Yeah, by way of 4 installments. That in this case is 150. So he's only supposed to pay now at the end 100,000 Kenya shillings being the balance.
Right.
Yes.
So this tax ideally is just for the expansion of the tax base. Am I getting it right?
Yes, it is. It is for the expansion, for purpose of expanding the tax base, because you find at the end of the day, some taxpayers would not have made profits. Okay. You get it? So, would not have made profits at all, unlike the person who actually made a profit of 1 million Kenya shillings, and therefore is supposed to pay 250,000 Kenya shillings as tax. Now, there is somebody else who actually made a loss of 1 million Kenya shillings at the end of the year, and therefore that person who made a loss of 1 million Kenya shillings, as opposed to the person who actually made a profit of 1 million Kenya shillings, that person under the old regime, without the introductions of minimum tax, will not pay. Yes, therefore, those people who actually made losses at the end of the year have actually been told, assuming that the two persons, the person who made a loss and the person who actually made a profit, actually has the same turnover, meaning that the minimum tax that they have paid is the same. That is 150,000 Kenya shillings. At the end of the day, what now happened is that the minimum tax, the person who made a loss has already contributed into the kitty.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So
everyone is actually playing their civic duty of paying taxes.
Right. That's very important. What is the process of filing for this tax, or for the payment of this tax?
Okay. You pay these taxes on a quarterly basis, meaning that your sales for a quarter period you have got to compute the sales for the quarter period, meaning that if you have sales for your quarter, that is the first quarter, assuming it is from January up to March, right, your sales is 1 million Kenya shillings. Okay, your sales is 1 million Kenya shillings, and therefore now in the fourth, that means in the come on or before 20th of April, you are supposed to pay minimum tax. And in this case, minimum tax being 1% of 1 million Kenya shillings is 10,000 Kenya shillings. Okay? If it is the 10,000 Kenya shillings now, you will be required to pay that amount.
Well, are there incomes that are exempted from the minimum tax?
Oh yes. Not every person who has business or who earns income is supposed to be subject to minimum tax. Right. Now, there are persons who are exempt from payment of taxes. These are people who have actually been specifically exempted from the payment of taxes. These are a group of people like NGOs, and any other person who has actually been exempted from paying taxes. And therefore, this is a group that is not required, even though they have received income, but by virtue of the fact that it is exempted, then they are not supposed to pay tax, the minimum tax. And there is also another category, employees. Employees also will not actually be required to pay minimum tax. That is in respect of employment income. But let me make it very clear that it is not because there are employees who are, in addition to their employment income, they have what we call a side hustle. They are also in business, isn't it? Now, if these persons are in business, then they will not be required. Okay, if they are in business and they are also earning employment income, they will also have to be required to pay minimum tax from their business side. And now, from their business side. And there is also another group of persons who are not supposed to pay, is those people who are earning rental income. Oh yes, the people who are earning rental income, that is what we call the monthly rental income. And therefore, this is a group of persons also who are actually exempted from the payment of minimum taxes. And there is also another group, as you have said, those people who are actually subject to turnover tax. And turnover tax are for those persons, or for those persons, when I talk about person, I'm talking about individuals as well as corporate bodies. So, but they are in business. Therefore, those people who are in turnover taxes, those who turn over at at the end of the day earns between 1 million Kenyan shillings and not exceeding 50 million. This is a group of persons who are actually supposed to be liable to pay turnover tax. Now, and that is now another group of persons who are not supposed to do that.
Let's now talk about a very emotive tax that has come on board, the digital services tax. Could you just give us an overview of what it is?
Digital service tax, by its definition, is a tax on persons who are carrying out businesses through the digital or through the online or electronic means. Yeah, that is why we are talking about digital. And therefore, this is a tax on such persons. Now, who are they? Yeah, who are they? Because now, if you are actually carrying on business through the digital platform, then you are actually supposed to be subject to digital service tax. And the rate of this digital service tax is 1.5% of the gross turnover. That means of the gross sales. Right. Yes, what you actually earn from what a digital service provider earns is actually supposed to be subject to a tax called digital service tax, and this tax is actually subjected to tax. Okay, it is subjected to through by way of withholding. Yeah, that means the person who is making the payment is the person who is supposed to deduct that tax and remit to Kenya Revenue Authority. Yeah, because what happened is that the commissioner is empowered by law to appoint a person. That means every person who is actually making payment from the services that he has received from a digital service provider to deduct withholding tax, and the deductions is actually on the gross amount that is supposed to be payable. Now, who are the digital? Who is supposed to be subject to this digital service tax?
Yeah, because well, many people have been doing business online for quite a while. Many people have their own side hustles, or it's even their main hustle actually. So is it everyone who is online doing business?
Not everyone who is doing business through online. You know, okay, it is only digital service tax is arising from those from the platform owners, those people who are actually platforms, providing a platform for purpose of meeting where sellers and buyers meet, yeah, online to carry out business transactions. And therefore, this is a group of persons whom we look at in terms of those people who provide the platforms. You look at it, for instance, the bloggers, the digital or the web hosters. Yeah, those people who are hosting other persons through the web. We are talking about Google. Examples would be Google. Other example could be Jumia. Also provides a platform upon which people, buyers and sellers, do meet to transact their business.
Yes. So does this mean it's extra tax? Because does it exempt anyone maybe who has a physical office really?
No, it doesn't. Either you have a physical office or you are just, but you don't have a fixed place of abode, isn't it? But you are actually operating business in Kenya. Yeah, you are operating online, and therefore either a resident person or a non-resident person would actually be required to be subject to this tax. At the end of the day, you can either be a person who is resident when it comes to a person who is physically in Kenya, or a person who is not physically in Kenya but able to transact business in Kenya. Yes, by facilitating the meeting of the buyer and the seller. So at the end of the day, these are the persons whom we are actually looking for purpose of payment of digital tax.
For the sake of the Kenyans who might want to know, if say you have a shop, yeah, a shop selling clothes, and you are promoting your shop online, yes, yeah, and even making sales through the online platform, yes, maybe Facebook or Twitter, whatever it is, do you also need to pay this tax? You
are the seller of the goods.
Yes.
No, it is the person who is the provider of the platform, because it's actually digital service. You know, we're talking about the service.
So at this point, maybe it's the Facebook or the Twitter that will pay the tax?
Yes, that will be required to pay the tax. Oh. Because as for you, as the seller who is actually selling through that platform, you are actually paying a fee for selling through that. Yes. It is not for free. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is not for free at all. Yes. Because it is a marketplace. It is a person's shop, and therefore you go and take your items, your merchandise to that shop. And when you take them, they would actually be charging you either storage fee, which of course in this situation now, you are not actually, there is no physical product that is being stored, but it is physically, you are, okay, you know, they open a place for you. You are advertising, isn't it? Right. Yes, they open a place for you. That means they slot you in their pigeon hall, yeah, in their pigeon halls that they have. They actually open a place for you, and that is why you are paying. So your clients would actually be able to visit your pigeon hall, download what they want, look if they are interested in it, and if there is a clause in terms of service, yeah, there is a clause of business, then you will be able to pay now. The person who is hosting you, who has given you the pigeon hall where you have money to sell, then there is a fee that you pay, and therefore that is the fee that we are actually talking about. Okay. Yeah, not the person who is selling the good. No.
So could you just clarify to Kenyans that this tax is not here to kill digital businesses?
No. The tax that we are talking about here does not kill digital businesses at all. It is not being killed, but you are just contributing also to development of this country. You are actually enjoying the services that the government do provides, and these services are not they are provided for free or at a very minimal fee. But actually, who is supposed to be? The government does not do any business. That is one thing that we Kenyans need to understand, that the government does not do any business. And therefore, when it comes to issues like, oh, we want the government to do this, we want the government to do this, from where? The government is not doing any business. It is actually you, as the citizens of this country, who is actually supposed to fund the government by paying your taxes. Yeah, you are funding the government by paying your taxes, and you now go and ask the government, we want roads. So in other words, even these digital business persons are also contributing because there isn't any person who earns an income that is not supposed to be subject to tax. Even biblically, from the time immemorial, you are supposed to pay your taxes. The digital economy is not actually being killed by being asked to pay the taxes. In fact, the digital economy at the moment is the driver of our economy. Each and everything that we do it through electronically or digitally. Even when you are paying our taxes to Kenya Revenue Authority, we are actually telling you, you have a phone, yes, can you pay your taxes through that phone? And in the process, you will now find Safaricom, who is hosting you, who is actually required also to pay the tax.
And when does this tax come into effect, and how often is it paid?
Digital service tax will be rolled out on 1st of January 2021. So that is the effective date, and therefore, as at now, the people should actually be oiling themselves, gearing towards a cruise. Yeah, we want to take off in January, and therefore, those people who have not registered now, you need to register and indicate that actually you are a person who is offering digital services, and as a consequence, you need to register. So that come January, you are actually ready for takeoff.
All right. Okay. So as we come to a close of this interview, what is your rallying call to Kenyans now?
My rallying call to Kenyans, I say, dear Kenyans, what you need to understand is that this is not a tax. Taxes is not being collected for and on behalf of Kenya Revenue Authority. Taxes are collected by Kenya Revenue Authority on behalf of the government of Kenya, which is charged with the responsibility of providing services to you in terms of security, in terms of education, in terms of any other development projects that you want the government to undertake. So it is your responsibility as Kenyans to heed this call to support the government in mobilizing resources for purpose of developing our country. Because it is said, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea.
Kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Welcome.
Well, that was Asante Sana. That was Charles Cheruiyot. He is the manager in charge of policy and tax advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority, and we have been speaking about matters digital services tax as well as minimum tax. Be sure to register if you know you just qualify to pay those taxes to ensure that the deadline does not meet you. Thank you very much for watching. Continue watching Business Insight. I'm Betty Kiptum. Let's now do the sports news. The review of the International Federation qualification processes for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games and each sport has now been finalized. The updates include a number of changes such as an extended qualification period and new deadlines.
Further to the approval of a series of amendments to the Tokyo 2020 qualification system principles by the International Olympic Committee Qualification Task Force in April 2020, the IOC has been working closely with all the international federations to determine the necessary adaptations to the Olympic qualification systems for their respective sports, and athletes and national Olympic committees have been consulted as well. A total of 57% of all the qualification places had been confirmed by the time the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games were postponed. In order to adapt the qualification system for the remaining places to the new timings of the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, the qualification system principles were updated and approved by the Qualification Task Force. The updates included an extended qualification period and new deadlines. If a qualification system specified age eligibility criteria, the criteria should be extended to cover the new dates, allowing athletes who were eligible in July 2020 to remain eligible in 2021. The age requirements of the sports concerned have been amended to reflect the new Tokyo 2020 dates. As a consequence, athletes who will meet the age limits in 2021 but did not in 2020 can participate in the games. At the same time, athletes who would have been within the age limit in 2020 but no longer in 2021 can still participate in the games. Meanwhile, rights of women in sports is one of the central matters that affects sports in Kenya and was addressed in the latest NOC webinar. NOC, through the Women in Sports Commission, is trying to create an inclusive environment for girls and women to thrive in sports. This is in line with NOC's Strategic Plan 2019-2024 to increase opportunities for women participation in sports. Finally, Kenya's Rosemary Wanjiru and Jonathan Ndiku are the champions of the Hokuren Distance Challenge Series 10,000 meters event. 10 days after opening her 2020 track campaign with a 5,000 meters in Fukagawa, Rosemary was once again victorious in the third meeting of the series. The 25-year-old finished in 30 minutes 38.18 seconds, just 3 seconds shy of the personal best she set when finishing fourth over that distance at last year's World Championships in Doha. Jonathan Ndiku won the men's 10,000 meters race in 27 minutes 23.47 seconds, beating compatriot Alexandra Motiso and Richard Yatol, who were second and third respectively.
The Confederation of African Football has announced that the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations will take place in June and July. The timing of the competition has been the subject of speculation after CAF announced that the continental event would take place in 2023. The next Nations Cup will take place in January 2022 because of unfavorable conditions in Cameroon in June and July. A move to earlier dates in 2023 could prove difficult as the 2022 World Cup will be played between 21st November and 18th December. With the Nations Cup leading footballers could play 3 major tournaments in the space of 18 months. Health Minister says he does not think fans will be able to return to football matches when the new season starts in September. The government and La Liga had hoped for fans to return at a reduced capacity, but the threat of a rise in coronavirus infections is set to prevent the move. La Liga resumed behind closed doors on 11th of June, and plans are there to start the new campaign on 12th of September. Up next is a summary of tonight's fixtures. Well, it is on that sporty note that we put a cap to Business Insight this particular evening. I would just like to thank Steve Mutua on Twitter. You've said that you have been watching. There's also Pastor Paul from Free Area. You've said that you've been watching. Thank you for your company. The weather update is up next with Irene Muchuma. My name is Betty Kiptum. Lensa Odingo has been my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Good night.
And a very warm welcome to Channel 1 Weather Updates. I hope you're well despite the prevailing cold weather conditions, especially for you in the capital. This will continue in the next 24 hours, but then it shall be well. A very warm welcome. My name is Irene Mchuma Odim. Currently, Nairobi area, Central Highlands, the Lake Basin region, and western parts of the country are experiencing scattered wet conditions over few places. This as the northeastern part of the country, the southeastern lowlands, and the coastal strip are experiencing scattered clouds. In the morning, it will be cool and cloudy in the capital. Similarly in Meru, this at the same time as sunny conditions prevail, there will be showers in Lamu as Mombasa and Malindi experience sunny conditions. Similarly in the northeastern parts of the country, the southeastern lowlands will experience sunny conditions, but then it will be cloudy in Machakos, Makindu, and Voi. It will rain in Eldoret and Kitale, and also a few areas over the northwestern parts of the country. In the afternoon, we'll see showers accompanied by thunderstorms dominating the western parts of the country. The northwestern parts of the country will also be affected over a few places. It will rain in Mombasa and Malindi. It will be sunny in Lamu, and sunny conditions will continue to prevail over the northeastern parts of the country. And similarly in the southeastern lowlands, there will be showers in Meru and Nyeri during the afternoon hours. Temperatures in the capital will range between 21 degrees Celsius and 12 degrees Celsius. The highest temperatures across the country will stand at 34 degrees Celsius, and that will be experienced in Mandera and Lodwar. Up next is the international forecast. Do have a good night, and let's do this again tomorrow. God bless.